in the heart of the ancient forest. A drum beats not by hands, but by spirits. Stay close, listener, for this is the story of the drum of the forest spirits.
You're listening to Folktales by Peta, where ancient voices rise again with the wind.
They say, the forest breathes, but only those who walk without pride can hear it. The people of Oro had always lived with the rhythm of the forest. It wasn't just a place of trees and shadows. It was a being old and awake. When the wind passed through its canopies, it hummed like the chest of a sleeping giant. When rain fell, it sounded like 1,000 fingers drumming on the skin of the world. At the heart of this ancient forest, they said, slept the Ayan-Mita, the three spirits of rhythm, the keepers of sound and silence. Long before the first village was built, before the first drum was carved, the Ayan-Mita had beaten the rhythm that brought light into being. It was that rhythm that made the rivers dance, the thunder speak, and the hearts of men beat in time. But in Oro, the people had forgotten. There was a time when Oro's evenings were filled with songs. The children would dance barefoot around fires, while elders struck drums made of hollow wood and stretched skin. But as generations passed, music gave way to murmurs of trade and talk of kings. The village grew richer, but quieter. Only one boy still carved drums by hand, Taye, the woodcarver's son. He was quiet, observant, with the kind of curiosity that made elders shake their heads. When others hunted, he listened. When others spoke, he carved. The villagers said Taye's ears were cursed, that he heard things no one else could. At night, while the rest slept, he would sit outside his hut, head tilted, listening to the forest's breathing. And one night, it answered. It began as a whisper, soft, distant, like rain on dry leaves. Then it grew into a rhythm. Dum, 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 dum. Taye froze. The sound was deep, alive. It wasn't human. It wasn't from any drum he knew. It came from inside the forest. He stepped closer, barefoot, eyes wide. Each beat seemed to call his name, faintly but clearly, Taye, Taye. His heart raced. And when he tried to tell the others the next morning, laughter filled the air. Drums that play themselves. One man scoffed. Maybe your stomach was hungry and mistook it for music. But Elder Abney, the oldest in the village, with eyes like river stones, said nothing. She only stared at Taye for a long time before speaking softly. The forest has its secrets, boy, and secrets are safest when left alone. That evening, Elder Abney called Taye to her hut. She sat beside a dying flame, weaving charms of bone and feather. Long ago, she began, the Ayan-Mita gave men the gift of rhythm, but warned that their sacred drum must never be touched. It is the heartbeat of the forest, and it belongs to no one. She looked up sharply. If the drum calls to you, it is not for you to answer. You are being tested. Taye bowed his head, respectful, but the sound still echoed in his bones. Dum, dum, dum. It called to him in dreams, in silence, even when he worked. And so one night, when the moon hung low and heavy, he could no longer resist. He wrapped his cloak tight and slipped from the village. The wind was cold, the kind that bites gently at your ears. The forest loomed ahead, black and endless. The moment he stepped under its canopy, the world changed. The crickets fell silent. The air thickened. Even his breathing felt louder than it should. Then, faintly, dum, 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 he followed the rhythm deeper, through vines and roots that seemed to shift underfoot. The moonlight could barely reach him now. Fireflies appeared, dozens of them, glowing faintly gold. But they didn't drift randomly. They floated in a pattern, a curve, a circle, a spiral, a heartbeat. The deeper he went, the clearer the drum became. It was no longer distant. It was right there. Taye stepped into a wide clearing and stopped breathing. There it was, a drum taller than any man, carved from living wood that glowed faintly blue. Its skin shimmered like water under moonlight. It floated just above the ground, beating itself, slow, deliberate, alive. Each beat made the air ripple. Each vibration shook the trees like thunder beneath their roots. And then it stopped. The silence that followed was so complete it rang in his ears. A voice, deep, layered, neither man nor woman, spoke from nowhere and everywhere. You have found what should not be found. Taye fell to his knees, trembling. I meant no harm, he whispered. I only wanted to hear. And you have heard, the voice said. Now the forest will listen. The drum pulsed once, slow, heavy, and a soft wind swept through the clearing. Fireflies gathered in a circle around him. The earth beneath his palms felt warm, almost alive. Go, child of wood and silence. The voice said, tell them what you have heard. Tell them to remember. And then the light faded. The fireflies scattered. The forest exhaled. When Taye opened his eyes again, the clearing was empty. The drum was gone. Only the echo of its final beat remained in the air. Dum, dum, dum. When Taye returned at dawn, his hands were covered in soil that glowed faintly like embers fading. The villagers gathered, murmuring. What happened? They asked. Did you find your forest spirits? Taye said nothing. He only looked toward the forest. And then, as the sun rose, a sound rolled across the sky, a faint, steady rhythm. Dum, dum, dum. The people froze. The air shimmered with unseen energy. Elder Abony stepped forward, eyes wide with ancient fear. The forest has awakened, she whispered, and the boy has been chosen. The morning after Taye found the drum, the forest was silent. No birds, no wind, only the faint heartbeat of the earth beneath his feet, slow, deep, ancient. He carried the drum home under his arm, afraid but unable to let go. The drum was warm, almost alive. When he touched its surface, faint symbols of light pulsed, glowing, fading, glowing again, like breath. At first, he hid it, wrapped it in bark cloth. But the forest spirits are not easily hidden. That night, while the village slept, Taye heard it, a soft thump, 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 coming from the bundle beside his mat. He unwrapped it, and the drum glowed brighter, whispering low tones that seemed to speak in rhythm. Beat me, and the world will listen. He hesitated. Then he struck it once with his hand. The sound that burst forth was not mere noise. It was wind, thunder, and voice combined. The walls trembled. The fire in the hearth flickered blue. Outside, every dog in the village howled. And in the darkness, the spirits turned their heads. At dawn, people came running. They had heard a thunderclap in the night, but no rain had fallen. They saw Taye standing before his hut, trembling, holding the drum. Old Mother Kemi, the village seer, stared long at him and whispered, "That is not the sound of man. The forest has chosen." Taye wanted to deny it, but the drum called again, a low hum in his bones. Days passed. Each time he beat the drum, something happened. Once, when a hunter was dying of snakebite, Taye played softly and the man's breathing steadied. Another time, when drought had browned the yam leaves, he played by the riverbank, and clouds gathered, weeping rain before sunset. The people called it a miracle. The elders called it a mystery. And Taye, he called it destiny. But destiny is a heavy drum, one that can't be beaten without consequence. As moons passed, the boy's fame grew. Chief Oranian summoned him to the palace to play before the council. "Play for our strength," said the chief. "Play for the crops, for victory in trade." The drum pulsed brighter, sensing greed. But Taye, blinded by pride, played harder. The sound rolled across the land, and from the shadows of the forest, unseen eyes opened. The Iwan, the forest spirits, stirred. Their gift was being used to serve vanity, and vanity is poison to magic. That night, when Taye returned, he heard the drum whisper again, but this time the voice was not warm. It was sharp, like wind slicing through dry leaves. "You play for men, not for balance." The forest watches. Taye tried to silence it. He covered it with cloth, buried it beneath his mat, even placed it under stones outside his hut. But each night the sound returned, louder, closer, until it vibrated inside his chest. One evening, he could bear it no more. He carried the drum deep into the forest, back to the tree where he first found it. Moonlight fell in silver ribbons through the leaves. "Why did you choose me?" he cried. "I never asked for this." The air shimmered. The tree's bark opened slightly, and from within came a soft blue glow. A shape began to emerge, neither man nor beast, with eyes like stars underwater. It spoke without moving its mouth. "Because you listened, because you were humble." Taye fell to his knees. "Then take it back. The people only use me now." The spirit tilted its head. "The drum is not to be taken. It must be returned freely. Are you ready to give what you wanted most?" Taye hesitated. Power had tasted sweet. He remembered the way people bowed to him, the way they said his name. "No," he whispered. "Not yet." The spirit's eyes dimmed. The tree closed, and the wind stopped breathing. From that night, the drum's light began to fade. Each beat grew weaker. The power still worked, but twisted. When he played for rain, storms came and flooded farms. When he played for healing, the sick recovered, but others fell ill nearby. When he played for peace, arguments broke out among friends. The drum was teaching him balance through loss. One day, the seer, Mother Kemi, came to him in tears. "The drum you carry," she said, "is the forest's voice. It speaks of balance. But you play for pride. Return it before it silences you." Taye turned away. "It is my gift." She nodded slowly, a gift that grows teeth when kept too long. That night, he dreamt of fire. The entire village burned in silence. The drum lay in the ashes, pulsing faintly. He tried to reach it, but the ground cracked open, and from the fissure came 1,000 whispering voices. You took without giving. You played without listening. He woke with a scream. The drum sat beside him, glowing red like an ember. At dawn, he went to the river to wash his face, but when he looked down, his reflection was gone. Only the forest's reflection stared back at him, ancient, unblinking. He stumbled back, trembling. The drum hummed softly, almost sadly, as if saying, "You are losing yourself." That evening, dark clouds rolled in without thunder. Birds fled. The air was heavy and wet. The people gathered, frightened, and from the forest edge, a sound rose, slow, thunderous, alive. Another drum, deeper, older, angry. The spirits had awakened their own drum, the one that answers disobedience. Taye fell to his knees, clutching his chest. The two drums beat in unison, one in his hands, one in the forest. The rhythm grew faster, heavier, until his heartbeat matched it exactly. Then silence. The forest inhaled, and from the darkness came a whisper that chilled every soul in the village. The forest takes back its gift. The night the forest took back its gift, the air hung still. No frogs sang. No crickets dared whisper. And in that silence, Taye knew something had shifted, not outside, but within him. He woke to find strange patterns carved into his skin, lines of light that pulsed faintly, the same ancient symbols from the drum's surface. When he touched them, the forest murmured back like wind through bones. He had become an echo of the drum itself. At first, he thought it a curse, but when he walked through the village, animals bowed their heads. The trees leaned slightly as if listening. Even children stopped crying when he spoke. Power had returned, but it was no longer gentle. When anger stirred in him, the drum, now fused with his soul, throbbed violently. Fires flickered, shadows deepened, and the people began to fear him. Mother Kemi called for a council. She stood before the elders, her white hair glowing in the moonlight. He carries the forest's wrath, she said. The spirits are reclaiming balance. Chief Oranian shook his head. Balance or not, he is useful. Let him play to protect the village. The neighboring clans threaten war. Kemi's gaze hardened. You would use a storm to light your lantern? Then don't cry when it burns your house. But pride deafened them all. They begged Taye to play once more, for strength, for victory. And though his heart trembled, he agreed. That night, beneath a black sky, he stood before the gathered crowd. Rain hissed on the rooftops. The air smelled of lightning. He raised his hands, and the drum beat through his chest. One strike. Thunder cracked across the heavens. 2 strikes. The wind roared through the palms. 3 strikes. The earth itself shuddered. Then came voices, thousands of whispers woven through the storm. You play not for the forest, but for yourself. Taye's eyes widened. The people screamed as trees uprooted and water burst from the ground. The storm was no longer his servant. It was his mirror. Every greed, every pride, every lie reflected back in nature's fury. When the storm ended, the village was half gone. The river had carved new paths through farmland, and the once sacred drum lay cracked in two. Taye stood alone in the wreckage, trembling, his eyes filled with rain and regret. He fled into the forest, barefoot, bleeding, broken. The drum's glow flickered in his chest like a dying ember. Forgive me, he whispered again and again. But the forest did not forgive easily. From the shadows came figures, tall, graceful, glowing faintly blue. The Iwin. Their leader spoke in a voice that echoed through root and rock. You played the song of taking. Now, you must learn the silence of giving. The ground split beneath him. Roots wrapped around his arms, pulling him down. He tried to scream, but soil filled his mouth. As the earth closed over him, the spirit whispered one last time. Every drumbeat carries a price. For 7 nights, the forest was restless, winds moved in circles. The rivers refused to flow straight. Then, on the 8th dawn, all fell calm. Where Taye once stood, a tree had grown, tall, ancient, and hollow in its heart. When the wind passed through it, it made a soft, rhythmic hum, the sound of a drum beating from within. The villagers called it Igiilu, the drum tree. And to this day, the children are warned, never play for glory, play for truth, or the forest will remember, where a new generation discovers the tree, and the drum's voice is heard once more. Years passed, seasons turned like the slow hands of an unseen clock. The floodwaters dried, the wounds of the land healed, and the forest grew thick once more. But in the heart of the woods, where no bird dared nest, stood the drum tree, tall, hollow, and humming softly whenever the wind passed through. The villagers said it was the soul of Taye, forever playing his lesson for those who would listen. Children were forbidden to go near it, but curiosity is an old spirit too, one that never obeys. One evening, as dusk brushed gold across the leaves, a young girl named Amara wandered too far from the river. She was small, bright-eyed, and fearless. Her laughter carried like chimes through the trees. When she saw the great tree rising ahead, its trunk glowing faintly in the setting sun, she felt drawn. Each step she took, the forest quieted, as if holding its breath. Amara reached out and touched the bark, warm, pulsing faintly. Then, thump, thump, the tree answered. She jumped back. The sound was deep, like something beating inside wood and earth. Then came a whisper, soft as wind. "You have his blood." Amara froze. "Who's there?" "The one who played too long. The one who learned too late." That night, she couldn't sleep. Each time she closed her eyes, she heard the distant rhythm, soft, steady, calling her name. By the third night, she couldn't resist. She took her father's small drumstick, crept into the forest, and struck the tree gently once. The sound rolled like thunder under silk, beautiful, haunting, endless. And deep inside the hollow, something shifted. A faint blue light leaked through the cracks. Leaves rustled, though there was no wind. And the whisper came again. "You woke me." Amara stepped back, trembling. "I didn't mean." "Meaning is the path to destiny, child. The forest remembers your name." The air shimmered, and before her stood a faint figure, not man, not mist, but something both. Eyes like quiet flame. The ghost of Taye. Amara gasped, "You're real." Taye nodded slowly. "I was, once, until I learned that power given by the forest is not owned, only borrowed." She looked at the tree. "Then why did it call me?" "Because you carry the same heart, restless, curious, hungry for truth." He moved closer. "There is a drum buried beneath this tree. If the world forgets balance again, the drum will call. And when it calls, you must decide whether to play it or let silence win." Before she could answer, he began to fade. The spirit's test through echo, not voice. Listen well. Then he was gone. Only the wind remained, and the steady heartbeat of the drum tree. By morning, Amara's father found her asleep by the forest's edge. He scolded her gently, but as he led her home, something in her eyes had changed. A distant knowing, a quiet wisdom. Days turned to moons. Strange things began to happen again. The river sang at night. Animals gathered at the edge of the forest, watching the village silently. And during the harvest festival, the sky filled with flickering blue lights, drifting like fireflies, though none had ever been seen there before. Mother Kemi, now very old and nearly blind, called Amara to her hut. The girl knelt before her. "You have been chosen," the seer whispered. "The spirits stir once more. The drum's silence is breaking." Amara swallowed hard. "But I didn't play it again." "No," said Kemi, "but the world has." The greed of men echoes even without drums. That night, as the village slept, the forest began to glow faintly, veins of light crawling up the trunks like rivers of moonlight. The air hummed. The ground trembled softly. Amara woke and stepped outside. The wind whispered through the palms, carrying the voice of Taye once more. When balance breaks, the forest chooses a voice. The trees bent toward her, the sound building, thum, thum, thum. The rhythm was familiar, her heartbeat in harmony. Without thinking, she began to hum along. The sound was gentle at first, then deeper, layered with thousands of unseen voices. Leaves lifted in slow circles around her. The ground shimmered beneath her feet, and then silence. She looked up. Every spirit in the forest stood before her, translucent, shimmering, beautiful. Their leader, the same who had once judged Taye, spoke softly. "The drum must speak again, or the world will forget its pulse." Amara bowed her head. "But I am just a child." So was he. And he failed. Then learn from his silence. Balance is not silence, child. It is song and stillness dancing together. They extended their hands. From the air between them, a shape began to form. A small drum, carved from the same living wood as the tree. It floated before her, glowing softly. Play once for harmony, twice for healing, thrice, only if you wish to see the truth. The spirits faded. The drum remained, pulsing in her hands. Amara carried it home before dawn, hiding it under her mat, just as Taye once had. But she knew better now. She would not play for pride. She would listen first. When her father woke, he found her by the window, eyes closed, lips moving silently. "What are you doing?" he asked. She smiled faintly, listening to the forest breathe. And far away deep in the woods, the old drum tree swayed in the morning wind. Its hollow heart echoed softly, a steady rhythm beneath the song of birds. The forest had not punished this time. It had chosen differently. It had remembered Taye's pain and given humanity one last chance to learn. Dawn came slowly. The mist clung to the ground like forgotten dreams. Amara stood at the edge of the forest, the small glowing drum in her hands. Behind her, the village slept, unaware that their fate balanced on a child's breath. The spirit's warning echoed in her mind. Once for harmony, twice for healing, thrice for truth. She had not yet played a single beat. She feared what the truth might reveal. For days, she watched the world shift. The crops withered without reason. The river swelled and withdrew as if confused. And animals, deer, monkeys, even leopards, gathered silently at the forest edge, eyes fixed on the village. Something was breaking, not seen, but felt. The balance that Taye once disturbed had begun to unravel again. It was not pride this time. It was neglect. The people had stopped honoring the forest. No libations poured at the new moon. No songs offered to the ancestors. No gratitude, only taking. The forest was not angry. It was weeping. That evening, As thunder growled on the horizon, Amara went to Mother Kemi one last time. The old seer lay weak, her eyes half closed. "The forest is crying," Amara whispered. "What must I do?" Kemi smiled faintly. "Listen to your heartbeat, child. It is the same drum that beats in the earth." Her hand trembled as she reached for Amara's. "Remember, not all songs are meant to be heard. Some are meant to be felt." And with that, her breath faded, peaceful, like smoke rising to the ancestors. As rain began to fall, Amara walked alone into the forest. Lightning flashed across the sky, lighting her path. The trees seemed to bow as she passed. She reached the drum tree, taller, older, its hollow heart glowing faintly gold. Kneeling before it, she placed the small drum at its roots. "Spirit of the forest," she whispered, "teach me the song of balance." The wind rose, circling her in slow rhythm. She lifted her hands and struck the drum once. Thump. The sound rolled through the forest like gentle thunder. The leaves shimmered. The rain softened. The animals bowed their heads. Harmony. She struck it again. Thump. The rivers began to flow clear again. The sick in the village stirred in their sleep. The crops lifted their faces to the rain. Healing. She hesitated. The third beat still waited, the one that would reveal the truth. She looked up at the drum tree, and for a moment she saw Taye's faint figure in the light, watching her with calm eyes. "The truth is not always peace," he whispered, "but it is always freedom." Amara closed her eyes and struck the drum a third time. The world seemed to stop. The sound did not fade. It expanded, rippling through time itself. The trees glowed white. The ground turned to light. And suddenly, Amara was no longer standing in the forest. She stood in a vast space of stars and shadows, between the world of spirits and men. Voices surrounded her. Thousands, millions, all speaking at once. "We are the memory of the earth. We are the rhythm you forgot." In that moment, she saw visions. Taye as a boy, the village before the flood, the first forest, the first humans planting, giving thanks. Then she saw the future, cities rising, rivers burning, trees falling, silence swallowing songs. She wept. How can one girl fix what the world has forgotten? And the spirits answered. By remembering, by teaching, by playing the drum, not with hands, but with heart. Then the light faded, and she was back at the drum tree, her face wet with rain and tears. She rose, lifting the small drum high. Its glow spread across the forest, into the village, into every home. People woke, drawn outside, seeing her silhouette under the storm. She played again, softly this time. The rhythm was not for power, not for pride, but for gratitude. The storm quieted. The night breathed. And from every corner of the forest came a chorus: wind, rain, river, bird, all joining her in one great song. The song of balance. When it ended, the silence was beautiful. The people knelt. The forest glowed, faintly blue. The old drum tree shone brighter than ever, its hollow heart singing once more, not in warning this time, but in peace. Amara placed her small drum at its roots and whispered, "Let the next who listens remember." Then she walked away, the forest watching with quiet pride. Many generations later, when travelers come through that land, they still hear it, a low heartbeat under the sound of leaves, a faint hum that feels like memory. The forest still breathes, and when the wind moves through the trees, it carries an old truth. Balance is not silence. It is the song between the living and the listening.
And so the forest grew silent once more. The drums that once called the spirits now rest beneath the ancient trees. Some say on nights when the moon is full, you can still hear them, whispering their rhythm through the leaves. This has been another story from Folktales by Peta, where every whisper carries a lesson, and every tale a heartbeat of Africa. Stay close to the fire, for the next story is already stirring in the winds.